Rewritten story, copyright free, grammar polished. The city pulsed with the rhythm of ambition that morning. Glass towers shimmered under the rising sun, engines hummed, and the sharp click of footsteps echoed across the polished marble of a corporate plaza. Among the steady stream of executives, one little girl stood out, her soft pink dress brushing her knees as she clutched a tiny toy in her hand. Her name was Sophie, a quiet 6-year-old whose mother, Clara, worked as a corporate translator for one of the wealthiest businessmen in the city, Mr. Ling, a self-made millionaire whose empire stretched across continents. That morning was supposed to be ordinary. Clara had brought Sophie along because the babysitter had canceled. She'd promised her daughter it would be just a quick stop before heading home. But in a single moment, that ordinary morning twisted into something that would change all their lives forever. Scene 1, the calm before. The morning light poured through the towering glass entrance as Clara crouched beside Sophie, adjusting her cardigan. Behind them, 3 uniformed security guards stood beside a sleek black car parked near the curb. Mr. Ling had just finished a press meeting and was preparing to leave for another event. Everything looked perfect, too perfect. The air felt calm, almost rehearsed. Sophie's curious eyes wandered from her mother to the guards, who whispered quietly among themselves. She tilted her head, catching words she didn't understand, until suddenly she did. Clara had been teaching Sophie simple phrases in different languages for fun, and Chinese happened to be one of them. The little girl recognized just enough to freeze. The words drifted through the air like shards of ice. The bomb is under the seat. He won't make it past the bridge. Sophie's fingers tightened around her toy. Her breath caught. The color drained from her face. Clara noticed her daughter's sudden stillness and knelt beside her, worry clouding her expression. "Sophie, what's wrong?" she whispered. The child didn't answer, only stared at the guards, her lips trembling. Scene 2, the warning. At that moment, Mr. Ling began walking toward the car, shaking hands with associates, smiling as if the world belonged to him. Sophie turned toward him, her small voice breaking through the hum of engines and chatter. "Don't get in the car." The plaza froze. Heads turned. The girl's cries sliced through the air like an alarm bell. The guards stiffened, their eyes flashing panic, before one of them reached for his earpiece. Clara's heart stopped. She didn't know why Sophie had shouted, but the terror in her daughter's voice was unmistakable. Mr. Ling hesitated mid-step, confusion and concern written across his face. Then he saw the girl's trembling hand pointing at the vehicle. Something in her eyes, that raw, desperate sincerity, made him stop. "Wait," he ordered. Within seconds, the security team moved in, scanning the car. One guard, sweating nervous, tried to insist everything was fine. But when another guard opened the back door, a faint ticking filled the silence. Every sound in the plaza died. Moments later came chaos. Alarms blaring, people screaming, officers rushing in. And then, a deafening explosion ripped through the parking area, smoke and debris filling the sky. The car had detonated prematurely, saving everyone who had hesitated to climb inside. Scene 3, aftermath. Mr. Ling was thrown backward, his white shirt streaked with dust. Sophie clung to her mother's waist, sobbing. The 2 surviving guards were immediately detained. Investigators later revealed they were imposters, hired through a shadow security firm, part of a carefully planned assassination attempt. Hours later, when the chaos had finally calmed, Mr. Ling sat across from Clara and Sophie in the sterile quiet of a police station. His sharp, calculating eyes now carried something else, gratitude and guilt. "She saved my life," he said softly, looking at the child who was behind her mother's arm. Sophie didn't speak, only nodded slightly, her eyes red from crying. Mr. Ling's voice wavered. "I don't think anyone has ever done that for me before." Scene 4, new bonds. Days turned into weeks. The story made headlines across the country. Millionaire saved by child's warning. But what the cameras didn't capture was how that single act of courage reshaped all their lives. Mr. Ling began visiting Clara and Sophie often. He learned that Clara had been raising her daughter alone since her husband's passing 2 years earlier. She worked long hours translating documents and attending meetings just to keep their small apartment. Sophie had picked up bits of Chinese from listening to her mother practice at home, the very skill that had unknowingly prevented a tragedy. What began as gratitude grew into something deeper. Mr. Ling found comfort in their company. Laughter he'd long forgotten, warmth he hadn't felt in years. For Sophie, he became the father she missed so deeply, someone who listened and encouraged her curiosity. For Clara, he was proof that kindness still existed in a world that often felt cold and transactional. Scene 5, The Legacy. Mr. Ling soon began supporting Clara's work, funding a language education program in Sophie's name, designed to help children from struggling families learn foreign languages. So they can be brave, too, he said with a gentle smile. But what truly changed him wasn't being saved. It was a realization of how much he had ignored, the small, human things that truly mattered. He had spent decades building walls of wealth and power. It took a child's innocent courage to remind him that humanity mattered more than any empire. Scene 6, Full Circle. Months later, the three of them stood together on the same plaza where it all began. The city buzzed around them, alive once more. Mr. Ling turned to Sophie and said quietly, "You just saved my life. You reminded me what it means to live it." The little girl smiled shyly and looked up at her mother, who squeezed her shoulder proudly. Behind them, the glass towers reflected the morning sun, a quiet symbol of new beginnings, born not of money or fame, but of love, courage, and second chances. Closing message. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps bring more true stories of compassion and courage to life. Now tell us, what would you have done if you were in Sophie's place that morning? Would you have had the courage to speak up? Sometimes the smallest voices carry the loudest truths. Sophie's bravery reminds us that even in a world full of fear, a child's heart can save not just one life, but many. For Clara and Mr. Ling, that one act of courage rewrote their story, a story of faith, humanity, and the power of doing what's right, no matter how small or scared you feel. Because kindness, spoken in any language, can save the world.